Gerald Russell is a senior associate at the UK-based Foreign Policy Centre, and he's a former British diplomat who has served in both Iraq. He joins us from our London studio. Really nice to have your company tonight, Gerard. Is this another realignment of territory or just a very significant gain for the rebels?
Well, it could prove to be quite significant. Obviously, there are two fronts in Syria. The government is fighting against Islamic State and Al-Qaeda in the north. But the regime in Damascus has been worried for some time that new forces were going to strike north from Jordan, essentially with probably Jordanian training and perhaps American funding. And it looks like this is actually happening. Not only Daraa, but also now this major army base falling to the rebels, with implications for the regime. It looks as if Damascus is losing ground, both in the north and the south. And it's probably pulling back, retrenching, failing to reinforce. We saw that it allowed Palmyra to fall to Islamic State. And it looks as if it's unable now to put enough manpower out there to defend its southern border as well.
So while there may be gains against the regime, they are not necessarily unified ones.
Well, no, this southern front, which has captured the army base, is quite a loose coalition of about 50 different rebel groups. And in February, it issued a statement expressing its anti-extremist stance and its desire to bring down the government in Syria. It looked as if that was perhaps a pro-Western alignment, a bid for US funding and support. So this is probably a very different kind of entity from Islamic State, but as you say, also less unified. What the victory may mean, though, is, with success, you get unity. If it looks like they're winning, people begin to get behind a joint project. If they look like they're losing, then of course they split apart and the divisions show. So it's conceivable that we're seeing here something significant. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions. This is still going to be a very, very long conflict. And it's far from given that this southern front can move north as far as Damascus. It may prove more difficult the further it gets from the Jordanian border.
And to your point then about getting too excited, I guess, is there has been predictions that perhaps the Assad regime may fall quite quickly. Would you say that is still some way off?
Well, I suppose the trouble about these predictions is that it may fall very quickly when it falls. But I don't see the evidence that the regime is yet completely finished. It is probably running short of people and appears to be running short of money. And of course, with every defeat, morale sinks. And in particular, some of these losses are strategic. And the army base, for example, cuts off bits of the Hawran, which are significant, source of support for the government in the past, from Damascus. And therefore, you begin to see geographically the regime contracting. But I wouldn't assume that the government is finished. I think it's more that it's retrenching, that it's pulling back. What's essential to it is to keep Damascus and the coast. And for as long as it does, it can survive. What it actually probably is more worried about at the moment is Islamic Front moving west from Palmyra to take Homs, which is a major city in Syria that lies between Damascus and the coast.
Before we leave this, we hear reports the Obama administration is preparing a plan to set up a new US base in Anbar province in Iraq and sending more trainers and advisors. Do you think that is going to be would that be a significant development in the ongoing fight against IS there?
Yeah, it's both sort of good and bad in a way. What's good about it, obviously, is that it lends strength to the anti-ISIS coalition. It's inevitable that America will be drawn into the conflict with Islamic State proving so resilient. Of course, in a sense, what Islamic State wants is to have a fight with the Americans. So there is a negative side to this in that if you get direct conflict between Islamic State on the one hand and the Americans on the other, you're back to something more like what we had in 2006, 2007. But at the moment, of course, the Americans are very committed simply to training, supporting, and conducting airstrikes. They don't want to get into anything like combat on the ground.
Gerald Russell, really good to get your insights. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.